On the biggest stage in the world, FanDuel's changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore. With FanDuel's Super Sub, if your player's subbed out, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves the match, your bet continues on with the substitute. So you're still in it until the final whistle. Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
21 plus select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DCKYWY. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat. Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050. Massachusetts. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 877-770-7867. Louisiana.
Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
Mr. President, he said, tonight we're going to hit them very, very hard. And I'm taking personal interest in this because my daughter, my Ava, she's in Tel Aviv right now. And I know that Israel is not taking part in this bombing, but it doesn't matter. Iran hits them. So if Trump is true to his word and we hammer Iran later on tonight, that makes me nervous with Ava there. And, of course, I'm supposed to go to Israel a week from today. And I care less about myself and my daughter, of course, but I'm not worried about my safety. I just think they may cancel the whole trip. And I'm supposed to speak at this huge international policy summit with Bibi and Mike Huckabee, Mark Levin, all of us. But who knows now? So he is saying, quote, we will be hitting Iran very hard tonight. Let me get Katie Pavlich's opinion on this. Again, 10 p.m. weeknights, NewsNation. My friend Katie Pavlich. Trump is once again showing the opposition the playbook. He doesn't seem to care, Katie. He says, we're coming at you later on tonight. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's past time. I think it's far past time that we take something valuable from the regime as they continued, as the Secretary of War said yesterday, tapping us along, doing what they've always done, which is lying, acting in bad faith, claiming that they want some kind of deal while they demand lots of money, which they'll use just to rebuild their ballistic missile program and ultimately their nuclear program. I think that the president should ask the American people for some more time. I keep hearing that, wow, this is dragging on. It's only been 4 months, and this is a big task ahead of us that we've been dealing with for 50 years, and it's time that it finally end. So I respect that the president is moving forward, but I think we should have done this 3 weeks ago.
Totally agree. Tuesday night, I remember tweeting that night, I'm getting a bad feeling. It was about 6 o'clock. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, President Trump said, I'm giving him 10 more days. This is a Tuesday night, remember? And I'm like, come on. Just do it already. Stop threatening to do it. And I don't want civilians to die. I'm a nice guy. I'm a very nice guy. I don't want to see innocent people die, but this is war. Enough is enough of this nonsense. Go in there, take Cork Island, blow it. Do what you got to do, because the constant stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, we don't look very strong. And honestly, Iran looks like at times they're holding the cards, and that's ridiculous.
Well, and ceasefires, tend to put you in a position where you have to retake ground or retake opportunities that you already fought for. Now, it seems like there was a lot going on over the last 3 weeks covertly that we haven't quite been told about yet. Yesterday, President Trump from the Oval Office said that they'd been escorting 100 million barrels of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz and out of the Gulf.
Yeah.
So that, there were some things that were happening strategically with the ceasefire that were useful. But just given the way that the regime is waiting out the president, hoping that, someone comes along next time in the White House who isn't as tough on Iran, the time to do it is now if we're going to do it. And, if you're going to go in, you should go in all the way. You shouldn't go in halfway.
Right.
And from the beginning, that's been Trump's posture, which is why the ceasefire was surprising. I don't think he's delusional about who these people are. I think he perfectly understands who they are and how they've behaved over the past 50 years. And you mentioned the Israelis. They may not be involved now, but they may become involved. We'll just have to see.
No, they will become involved eventually. And, the media loves Katie Pavlich, I guess, developing this lie which they lie about everything about Israel. Israel's committing genocide. No, not even close. Not even close. But they also want to build this lie that Trump and Bibi don't get along anymore. You know, and
Right.
Trump did admit last week that he used the F word. He doesn't care. He's done it with me. He does it with everybody. He loves you. In fact, I think if he uses the F word, that means he really loves you. But the truth is, him and Bibi have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. They love each other. They're a great 1-2 combination. In fact, I believe this is the best we've ever had with Trump in America and Bibi in Israel. And they're going to be okay. But you would admit that Israel now is in a bit of trouble because, look, Iran can't reach Brooklyn. They can't reach Cincinnati. So when things start getting rough in Iran, who do they hit? Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem. So people in Israel right now, as you can imagine, are very concerned.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, the people in Israel want this to be finished more than anybody else.
Correct.
They're pretty furious that there's been this ceasefire, that they've been having their hands tied when it comes to taking out Hezbollah and Lebanon as their soldiers are being killed by these drones. I say ceasefire lightly. You know, I was say Israel and the U.S. cease, and then the Iranians fire through their proxies or directly from Iran. So, you know, the president has known Bibi, as you mentioned, for a long time. I remember flying with President Trump to NATO last summer, and that was right after Midnight Hammer, and he was quite frustrated with the current situation. And then 9 months later, we conducted what we're doing now in Epic Fury. So, you know, there are timelines here that we're not aware of, and I am confident that the president wants to get this job done.
And you're right about the Israelis. They want nothing short of total annihilation. They don't want to worry. You know, you talked about if we give them money, and we better not, because, look, the truth is a deal makes no sense. Why does it make no sense? I'll tell you why. They're not going to comply. Obama and Kerry tried it. They're not going to comply. You can open the strait. You can... And if you give them money, if God forbid we give them money, not only will they rebuild their own missiles and their own and go further and make a nuclear weapon, that money's going to right back to those terror proxies, Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas. Next thing you know, Israel's going to take a nuke. So you cannot give these people any money. I'm not sure we understand that, Katie.
Well, we should understand it because of their behavior over the last, even, you know, recent history. Let's just say 15 years. When, you know, the Obama deal went through, they became even more emboldened, more violent. We're building their ballistic missile program at levels that we hadn't seen before. But the question, I think, is, are we going to continue to manage this threat? You know, I heard Vice President J.D. Vance the other day on Fox talking about how we need verification and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, so how much of this is going to be just managing this problem as we have tried in the past, or are we going to end this threat once and for all? And so I know that's a difficult, tall task, but, you know, we've been managing this issue for years and years, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, 47.
So are we managing it, or are we ending it?
End it. 47 years is a long enough experiment for me. Katie Pavlich,
Exactly.
the host of Katie Pavlich Tonight. She's terrific, 10 p.m. every weeknight on NewsNation. So the Democrat Party has, they're rotten, they're disgusting, they're despicable people. Even people that 20 years ago were not horrible people like Chuck Schumer, they've turned into terrible people. And boy, was it on display this week up in Maine. I mean, there's not one, there's not two. There's like 10 reasons why you would hate a guy like Graham Plattner. And there's Bernie Sanders and all these Democrats from Booker to Jeffries who are not above at the very least, trying to help the guy win. Graham Plattner, if that's the face of the Democrat Party, and it is, how much trouble is that party in?
You know, the Democratic Socialists of America are taking over the Democratic Party. They saw an opening in New York City, as you know, with Mayor Mamdani running against Cuomo, thinking that Cuomo was a bad candidate, an older candidate who, you know, represented the establishment. They came in with someone younger and took that seat. They're doing the same thing in Maine. They saw an opportunity where the incumbent, Janet Mills, the governor who was running for U.S. Senate, who eventually dropped out of the race, you know, that she was not what they want for the new face of the party. And they got in there, and now Graham Plattner is the nominee. They're doing this in primaries across the country, and it's a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. Whether that will be successful in the mainstream, is to be seen. They, like typical communists, they talk in slick terms. They use great propaganda. It looks really nice. They make socialism look like something that is actually a successful form of governance, when we know, thousands of years of history proves that that's not true.
Right. Never works.
So they're making it look really sexy, but it's not. And so, it's to be seen whether the rest of America falls for this.
Making it look sexy. I just saw you last week on 42nd Street and 3rd Avenue. You were here, and most of my segment with you was, we talked about this young 27-year-old Jewish lady who got attacked by some maniacal black lady saying that Jewish people eat children. She pulled her hair out of her head. Another disgusting anti-Semitic attack in New York. And by the way, to this day, the mayor has still said nothing about that. So I'm not sure what sexy is these days, but you were just in New York City with this lowlife jerk-off jihadist at the helm. Sorry, Katie. You think New York looks sexy these days?
I don't think so, but they put out this propaganda and all this stuff, just like you've seen in regimes of the past, and they make it look really, really appealing until you live in it, and it's not. So that's, it's certainly a fraudulent way to present a type of living. But when it comes to, the mayor not saying anything about that young Jewish woman who he had on the show, it's because he's fine with it. I mean, he called for intifada. His wife is, a pro-Hamas artist. I mean, these people believe in terrorism against Jews. I don't know why anybody is surprised that he wouldn't be saying anything about this.
I'm a little surprised. I thought that even though, because he is the mayor, that he'd have to push back just a little bit, but he hasn't. He never, ever says anything.
The guy who had Mahmoud Khalil at his house
I know.
for dinner. This is,
no. Wait a second. Forget about his house. He had Mahmoud Khalil at Gracie Mansion. Guess who pays for that place? I do. Okay, so his house is one thing. You want to have Nardine, you want to have Khalil, you want to bring over Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. You can do all that. He's doing that stuff at Gracie Mansion, Katie. And us taxpayers have to pay that bill. The California primary looks like that's finally over, and Hilton makes it. I don't think he beats Becerra anyway in November, so he makes it, but I still think the Democrat wins. Poor Spencer Pratt, who had a huge lead that night. Huge lead. He's out. Very simple question. Did they cheat, Katie Pavlich, in the state of California?
Well, the election systems in California are just set up so that Democrats never lose. They've had one party rule for decades and decades. They send ballots legally, quote, to dead people and people who have moved out of the state. I have a friend who hasn't lived in California for 15 years. He gets a ballot in the mail every single year from California. So it's like, it's illegal to show ID. They've developed the system around Democrats always benefiting, which is why you've seen one party rule and one party failure in the state, and why people can never get away from it because of the way that they've set up the systems to only benefit Democrats.
You know what I found out the night I was on your show? I got to give you credit because I was there about an hour early. Had to get my makeup done, even though I'm beautiful, and just kind of.
We all got to get the makeup.
Right? I got that big shine on my forehead, but that night you actually had. It was a great job. You had the lady on, Yvette, who just won the primary for governor in the state of California. I didn't know until I was watching you that night that President Trump endorsed her and kind of stuck it to Nancy Mace. And, of course, Mace ended up getting blown out in that big primary. I know Lindsey Graham did win in South Carolina, but I learned that on your show that night. What a shocking turn of events for President Trump in South Carolina, yes?
I actually wasn't surprised that he endorsed the lieutenant governor. She has a successful track record in the state. She quietly appealed to President Trump. She's been, implementing much of his agenda in the state, working with the federal government on a lot of issues as lieutenant governor. So I wasn't surprised that he endorsed her.
But Nancy Mace is in his Congress. Not only that, but Nancy Mace was the one who alerted President Trump that George Stephanopoulos just called you a rapist 3 times, which ended up being a $15 million fine. That was Nancy Mace who did all that.
Yeah, but I think some of Nancy Mace's behavior in recent months and over the last year in South Carolina I think that the voters also had some issues with her, and President Trump wanted someone who was going to win, and that's why he endorsed Evan.
She's a little wacky, isn't she? You can say it. Come on, Katie. I won't get mad.
No, she just, threw a fit in the airport and screamed at the police. And there's a few other things that have gone on outside of warning her about George Stephanopoulos.
I actually love her. She's been in the studio many, 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 many times. She's a good friend of mine, but it is what it is. So let me get to you. We mentioned Mamdani in New York, and right before you came on, I talked about this September 11th being the 25-year commemoration. One thing to see Rudy Giuliani sitting outside the Freedom Tower, a completely different thing seeing this anti-American hater, Mamdani. He's going to be there. But you, Katie Pavlich, congratulations. Last weekend, you completed the 10th annual Tunnel to Towers Tower Climb. More than 1,200 participants challenged themselves to climb 104 stories to the top of the World Trade Center in honor of the first responders like Steven Siller, who made that ultimate sacrifice on 9/11. Katie Pavlich, patriotic, beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to do it, and I got to the top and got overwhelmed with emotion, just given the 25th anniversary is coming up, and I just cannot believe when I was standing there thinking about those who had the choice of burning alive or jumping out of the building, that there are people who say we deserve 9/11. Absolutely infuriating, but also inspiring to see those who are related to those who ran into the towers, who were trying to save people that day and never came home. So it's the least I could do in their memory.
God bless you. Yeah, I remember the very next morning, my beautiful wife, Danielle, and I were having breakfast. We lost friends in the building that day. I was on the air with Imus at the time when those planes hit. And the cover of the New York Post were pictures of people mid-air jumping out of the building. That was the cover, September the 12th. Yeah.
It's just terrible, absolutely terrible. And to think that this, 25 years later, we have sympathizers running New York City. It's just, it's actually hard to believe. It's surreal.
Yeah, Frank Siller. The motto for Tunnel to Towers is never forget, but clearly we forgot. Katie, you're great. Your show is great. I was honored being on your show last week. Let's do it again.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, it was great. And you've been great on this show twice, too. So thank you for coming on this morning. And please say hello to your husband. He's one of the sweetest guys ever. I love your husband. He's a great guy.
He is. I love him, too. He's amazing. I'll tell him you said hello. Thanks for having me. Great to talk with you.
You, too. Katie Pavlich right there, folks. Check her out weeknights at 10 p.m. on NewsNation. Katie Pavlich Tonight.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?